G'day, everyone. We're talking branding. I twisted Sam's arm, which is a very dangerous thing to do sometimes with Sam Horn. He's our head of creative here at 5 by 5. He's been with us for 11 years. The real driving force behind all the amazing branding and visual work that we do here. And has almost 20 years experience. Sam, you've been designing since a wee lad.
Yeah, that's probably blowing me up a little bit. Probably, let's go 15. It's fine.
15. All right, I'm actually sounding old.
5 for 11, and yeah, elsewhere for 4 5. So yeah, getting there, aren't I?
Nice, nice. So we're talking branding, but like it's much more than a logo. It's around a visual identity for a business. And obviously we're just sort of, we zoom in on one specific aspect of that, which is the digital side of things.
Mm.
So from a branding, like, why is this important? Is the question that we're pondering here.
Mm.
It is essential not only for the marketing or aesthetic appeal, but for its impact on almost every aspect of your business's operation, and its perceived value to the world, the stakeholders, the market, all that sort of stuff. So we're going to break this down a little bit. And before we do, we look at some stats. You have literally a window of zero point 0.5 of a second or millisecond.
Yeah.
I think that's half a second to make an impression on someone encountering your business for the first time.
Yeah.
Presenting your brand in a consistent, uniform way increases your brand visibility as much as 3.5 times. So just literally being consistent. The perception and visibility of brand, 3.5x increase. Having then cohesive visuals across your business and marketing touch points and can increase revenue by 23%. That is a big one. And then the final stat I thought was pretty interesting. Color improves brand recognition by 80%. So there's
Yeah, that's
obviously
just that consistency there, John. And there's a couple of those stats are quite surprising. Hey, you have to sort of
Mm,
double take and double check them online. But yeah, that
yeah.
the millisecond one in terms of how quickly your brain functions in terms of encountering a business for the first time and how it's perceived, and then also that final point that you touched on there being that color. So for example, Coke, you know what color it is, right? So is that consistent?
Mm. Yeah, cool. So where does visual identity fit into sort of overarching business strategy?
Yeah, so you've got your business, which is on the far left there, which is basically, what your consumers are buying from you, what your primary business and function is, right? You've got your brand, which is why customers are buying from you. And then on the
Mhm.
right-hand side, which is where we're going to be focusing, a subset of this is your branding and how it's, shaped from the consumers and how the consumers are actually perceiving, your organization and your identity. So visual identity falls, it's a facet of branding, right? So you can see there visual identity falling off that.
Yeah, we'll use some practical samples around that, and that's your appearance, your brand personality, everything that goes into that.
Mm.
Um, so visual identity is just one part of the brand. Obviously, we spoke about first impressions and just how little time you have to make one of
Yeah,
those.
right. Pretty quick.
Um, what else? Like, why would we invest in your visual identity?
Well, you want to make sure that with your visual identity that it's easily recognizable, presents professional and reliable perception of the business, and also stands out from your competitors. It's one thing, take a look at what the competitors are doing.
Mm.
It's all important to make sure that you can separate yourself from those competitors with your visual identity. And also, just the consistency with your visual identity keeps the brand front of mind for the consumers. So being
Cool.
consistent, big part of that.
Yeah, nice. So if we look at some of the elements, like let's get into practical example around the visual identity. Like what goes into what are the elements of a strong visual identity?
Yeah, so a good analogy that I heard or I saw a while back from another designer was thinking of your visual identity and even your brand as a whole, like an onion.
Mm-hmm.
And an onion has multiple different layers, right? So your visual identity has that. So one of those layers being logo, your color palette, another layer, typography. Typography is basically your fonts. So your font families, your font weight, your kerning, your tracking, which is the space in between all your letters, all that boring stuff that the designers manage.
Mm-hmm.
Iconography is another layer, right? And that's optional. Some organizations, depending on the brand direction, utilize iconography, some don't. Photo and video, a big part, because that's really going to connect the staff down to the environment, and really sort of sell the products and services that you're delivering from that visual perspective. And then the all important brand guideline or style guideline, some people refer to it as that. And what that does is it ties all those components, all those layers of the onion together, right? A very critical component of the visual identity part, brand guideline.
Cool. So I'm actually going to show a physical example. This is a long-standing client from many years, and we're in the midst of a bit of a redesign. This is their existing website, and honing in specifically on their brand. They run a pretty cool event where you basically run a marathon around Uluru, and they've been doing this for years and years and years. This was their existing identity. We actually went down the path, so redesigning the website. Basically presented a concept, and they're like, not feeling it. And it was it wasn't until we sort of took a full step back, they're actually more dissatisfied with the brand because the direction that we'd taken was based on the colors and stuff that existed in this existing logo. So it's like, all right, well, actually, you know what we need to do? We need to go back to the foundational piece, which is the brand, the visual identity, and relook at that. Is that still current? And the answer was no. So that's then where we embarked on this redesign of the actual brand. And you can see here's the output of that. So you can see it's a good evolution on the existing brand. There's been a real simplification process of this. So what we're looking at on screen is the I guess the summarized version of all of that. So this is the brand style guide, and you can see here it's rules around logo spacing. And this essentially is the rule book. This could be handed to any supplier out there in the world, and they know that if they follow the principles that are defined in this document, that in theory we should get a nice consistent result around logo usage, what to do on different colors.
And this is where we start to see coming in from the previous page we were on, John, around the onion layers, right?
Yeah.
Where this is outlined the fonts, and you keep going through, it's dictating all those rules. And as you just mentioned, like the beauty of this is it's the foundation to the house that everything else is built upon. So getting this right and having this will alleviate a lot of, I guess, babysitting that needs to take place when you're getting a business card, website, car signage. It doesn't matter, right? You send them this full inclusive visual style guide pack, and the weight's off you in terms of dictating what the outcomes need to be, right?
Love it. So I'm just sort of flicking through this nice and quick, but essentially that's the document, and then like how that's translated now to a physical user identity, a user interface is this is a mock-up of the website. So it's not the finished product of the website, but you can see then how that's just been totally cleaned up. You can see how all the different visual elements come through, the use of typography, photography, colors.
Color, yeah, right. So you'd go away after looking at this and you'd know what, Outback Marathon's colors are because we've been consistent with that.
Yeah, it's so cool. So I think this is a really nice step forward, and hopefully it's been helpful in terms of just showing a practical example of how all these elements can only really work if we get this foundational piece done. Here's an example of ours. So we do this for us. It's about us eating our own dog food, and we've got our own guidelines. And what we'll do is post this conversation. We will send these slides. There's a template as well. There's actually another little document that summarizes everything that we've been through. So how do we actually create a consistent and cohesive set of visual branding? Mate, why is this important?
So consistency. So we're going to keep saying that. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it is a component to a brand, right? Consistency, it builds credibility. Credibility is going to build you that trust. The recognition. So, logo, colors, easily recognizable. You don't want to go overboard with your color palette as well, because, that earlier example I made of, say, Coke, it's not multiple colors. It's that singular that really makes it for easy recognition. Value. This one here is... it's important, and it organically takes place over time. Value around a brand doesn't happen overnight. You being consistent with various different mediums, social media, all your branding, and not getting distracted, right? Staying the course will create that value over an extended period of time. So it's really important to do so.
Yep. And then tips for doing the above?
I think I said that first one already. Stay true to the brand.
Stay true.
Don't get excited. It happens, man. Like someone in the marketing department or owner of business, they'll be on Instagram or something. They'll see something that the competitors are doing.
Yeah.
Like, hey, designer, let's do this. It's like, no. You stay true to your course, because we've set the branding style guide up for your business, and it should just consistently, create its own value, create its own visual presence, right? So that's a big part. And solid branding guidelines as well. We've touched on this. If you don't have a branding style guide and guidelines, I would highly recommend getting one, because it just alleviates a lot of...
Even if you've got an existing logo, there's nothing wrong with your logo. Like, I feel like just going through the process will just form up some more of the maybe the gray areas around the other bits and pieces, like typography or colors or whatever.
Totally. So it gets a little bit gray. It's a good thing to do if you don't have one, but just be aware as well, if you go to a new designer, you had someone else do a logo 10 years ago, you go to the new designer and go, hey, I just want a new branding style guide. They don't have all the backstory around how that logo came into fruition. What briefing, what was the fonts that was used in the logo, what are the hex colors used in the coloring? They don't have that information. So if you're going to do that, just be aware of that they're not going to know all the answers. They're going to possibly have to revamp to a certain degree.
Cool. So how would you know your brand needs a refresh? When is the right time? How would you answer that, Sammy?
Maybe you did a logo 10 years ago. Maybe you did a logo through 99 Designs or someone that didn't, take one full brief. They just went, oh, this looks pretty and I like those colors, and I'll just create a quick logo for you. So it's become outdated, or it's not hitting the target audience, which is the main component to why we're creating a logo and a brand, is to connect with your target audience, right? So there are a couple of reasons. Also, changes in the organization. So if a business is pivoting in terms of its services or for any other reason, there's the opportunity there to potentially assess, okay, well, is our current branding, is our current logo still addressing that target audience as best as it possibly could? And then final example would be mixed up branding. So over the course of multiple years of running a business, maybe you had one logo, someone did a slight adjustment to the slogan using a different font or something like that, and you've then got all these different logos that aren't just consistent. So rebranding will bring that all back into alignment.
Cool. And then executing on this.
Understand the why.
How do we get it done?
Yeah. So it depends on what you're going to do. If you're going to do a rebrand or just a refresh, right? It'll depend on understanding your why. So figuring out why you need to do that refresh. And I think I touched on that just on the previous slide a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? What are your consumers looking for now based on your products and your services? Research and learn. So again, studying that audience and the competitors and figuring out the best way to evolve the brand or rebrand. The next step would be, get creative. So after you're figuring out all the foundation, example, if your business was a song, what song would it be, right? So figuring all that out and then getting creative. Go into, take that. You're not taking that one, all right? Get creative, which is go into a designer with all that information and going, this is who the organization is. I'm a business owner. I know it better than anyone. This is who we are. This is our services. This is the tone. take all that information and start putting together some concepts for me.
Mm.
Finalize the concept with the designer, as well as that all-important style guide that we talked about.
Yeah.
Figure out a rollout plan, right? So how are you going to roll this out? Because you've now got all these new logos, you've got all these rules. Who's going to put it into place? Because
that's a big job.
Yeah, you probably don't want to do that. So you got to figure that out. Don't rush it, and then just launch it, get it out there.
Mate, you got me questioning. Who is our song? What's our song? That's
Metallica, it's me, but the marketing department's going to hate me for that. But it's not.
Yeah. You're an angry man of the 90s, Sammy.
Yeah. The logo doesn't reflect that at all. Probably, I don't know what we'll be. Yeah. We've got all those questions in our briefing. So before we do any logo work or branding, it's all those sorts of questions because it helps us figure it out.
Well, in line with the Metallica Black album, we've done a brand refresh, and you can see the evolution that we've taken over the years. So I started obviously as a one-man show. This was my poor attempt at a logo. It was more tied to the meaning of 5x5, so it's actually more a communication term. Go and Google it. But yeah, essentially, that was probably a very literal approach to a brand. And then you injected your flavor into that, Sam, and you can see how this has evolved over the years. And excitingly, we're going to do a brand refresh this year. Talk us through that.
Yeah, so we are currently in the process of starting to roll it out. So the marketing team has been throwing our evolution of our logo as well as our branding based on that, the rollout plan that we've got in place. So seeing that through social media. And this was important for us to make sure that we weren't losing any of the traction that had been put in place with the previous brands over the last 15 or so years, right? So especially over the last 10 years. Yep. So making sure that this evolution was staying true, not only from a color perspective, talk about that in a moment, but also even from a typography standpoint and the icon within the logo, you can still see the correlation between the previous two, and maybe even back to 2012, where you can see the 5 using very similar typography. We're not going from a left angle to a complete right angle because our services haven't changed completely. Right? Evolving. So the brand is also evolving subtly as we do.
Love it. Yeah, and we dropped the lobster font as well, Sammy.
Yeah. I had no weight in the game coming in, so the boss was like, "I need you to do this," and I was like, "All right."
Mate, I'm super excited and pumped and everything you said, like, that we're rolling this out across all these different platforms. We've kept our iconic blues. There's been some accent colors that have been added in there, pink, orange, and purple. New graphics, expansion of font family. So let's just show some practical examples of that. So you can see that, this is what we were running the last couple of years, and then this is how this has evolved, which I think is really cool. Amazing step forward. This is a little bit like the social media, and then sort of how that's evolved. You can see it.
Right? It's not like we're completely changing anything. No. Hinder it.
Yeah, and it's spot on. Like it's not a massive departure. It's an evolution, and you could scroll through the feed and sort of. It would be very subtle in terms of the change that you could see visually. So that's it, mate. Like, I know, like, it's an interesting topic to cover. I'm just going to give you my sort of parting shots and reflections on this. This is one of the interesting stats to start, that there's real revenue gains to be made from investing in brands. So do it right from the outset. Hire an expert, don't cut corners. There's a whole bunch of different services out there in the world where you can definitely get this done very affordably, but do they fully understand your business, your products, your services, the market, competitive landscape, all that sort of stuff. So that would be my first point, having a custodian for your brand. And I think that's something that you've been just really, really good at over the years, Sam, where you'll see something and you'll call it out and you go like, no, we're not doing that. Or, you've sort of kept it very, very rigid, and that's been great in the fact that we've had that consistency, which was a big theme here, and then being bold and trusting the experts and, really interrogating the credentials of the designer that you're partnering with. What about you, mate?
The overarching theme seems to be just staying the course, right? So human nature is always, you want something more, you want something different, and it's really tough to sort of stay disciplined and just follow those rules that are set. So that's, a massive one, and have someone in control of doing that. So follow the brand rules. If you don't have a branding guidelines, get one, very important. And just be consistent.
So there was a question. It was from Anonymous. So I'm not sure who that was, but do you have samples on how flexibility looks like when staying true to the brand guidelines? How would you answer that, mate? Like,
yeah, that's why it's anonymous. I think in the style guide, it's that's the rule book, right? So you're going to have examples within that style guide around font application, along with image style, color saturation. So there'll be examples within that finalized style guide to assist in terms of visual direction. And what you're simply doing is you're combining those finalized rule elements into a design medium, right? So if we think about a business card, all we're doing is adding those rules up. So it's business card should include these colors only, should include those fonts only, and should, if the designer needed, check that branding style guide for visual reference. So you follow the outcome's going to be that. It's when you don't follow the rule book and you're just like, oh, maybe we should use more percentage of this red this time, and maybe we'll go all caps next time for the heading and not lowercase. So all those little rules that add up to start the actual visual direction for that element. So again, branding style guide, very important for that, and it should include at least basic examples of the visual.
Yeah, it's hard. You want to provide flexibility, but that comes at a cost. So it's great.
And you can always evolve, right? You can always add to that style guide if
yes
wants to start evolving, expanding the actual colorways or expanding the visual approach for social media, which is different from website. That branding style guide can turn into many, many pages if needed.
Correct. Yeah. And it's really, that's probably another big parting shot is make it a working document. It's not set and forget. It's an evolution, and then that gets updated every 6 to 12 months or whatever. So that's it. We will send out a summary of this recording and also a cheat sheet around branding guidelines. And there's a bit of a template, some bunch of examples. I hope everyone has found this helpful. Stay tuned for the next one. We'll be doing this again next month. Thanks, everyone, for taking the time to join us. Thank you, Sam. You're amazing. I appreciate you. And go and make some design magic.